At the start of the story, we see a police detective named Danny. He and his partner Randy Nix are on their way to keep watch on a local bank. They received a tip from an unknown number warning that the bank might be robbed that day. On the way, Nix explains that 2 other branches of the same bank were already robbed before. In both cases, the thief only took one specific deposit box with the same number. When they arrive, Danny, Nix, and their team sit inside a surveillance van and start watching the bank carefully. Soon, they notice a man named Delrain outside the bank. Danny feels like he has seen him somewhere before. A woman then walks over and sits next to Delrain on a bench. When Delrain casually says, "It's really hot today," the woman suddenly repeats the exact same words. Then she gets up and starts walking toward the street without paying attention to anything around her. After that, Delrain walks up to the police officers standing outside the bank and calmly talks to them. The officers let him go inside without any suspicion, but Danny senses that something about this man isn't normal, so he quickly follows him inside. As Danny enters the bank, an employee tries to stop him, but Danny quietly steals the man's keys and says he wants to open a safety deposit box. The employee takes him to the deposit room. When the employee realizes Danny doesn't actually have the right key, he goes back to get his own. This gives Danny the chance he was waiting for. Using the stolen keys, he quickly opens the exact same numbered deposit box that was taken during the previous robberies. Danny's world is shaken when he opens the box and finds a photo of his daughter inside. On the back, a message is written, "Find Lev Delrain." At the same time outside, the strange woman begins causing chaos. She starts taking off her clothes and keeps shouting that it's too hot. She walks straight into traffic without stopping at the signal. Within seconds, a massive crash happens as several cars slam into each other, blocking the entire road. Right then, Delrain walks into the bank. With just a single command, the receptionist immediately locks down the entire building. Moments later, police officers rush inside and begin forcing everyone out at gunpoint, while the receptionist heads it toward the deposit room to retrieve the box. That's when Danny pulls out his gun and orders her to stop, but the woman looks completely unaware of what's happening. She just stands there, smiling. Suddenly, the police arrive behind Danny and open fire on him. Fortunately, he's wearing a bulletproof vest, which saves his life. Danny then escorts the receptionist out of the bank with the deposit box, and they get into a police truck. The truck speeds away, but after a short distance, they run into the roadblock caused by the earlier accident. The same woman is still wandering around the road, shouting about the heat. The truck crashes through several vehicles and flips over. The impact is brutal, and the receptionist dies on the spot from her injuries. Soon, Delrain arrives at the overturned truck. He calmly picks up the box, places a bomb in the woman's hand, and walks away. By the time Danny reaches the spot, the bomb explodes, burning all the evidence to ashes. Just then, Danny spots Delrain running and immediately starts chasing him. Delrain runs into an old building. Inside, Danny suddenly points his gun at 2 men, but they turn out to be fellow detectives. The 3 of them move upstairs, and on the rooftop, they finally find Delrain. But as soon as Delrain says that Danny is the wrong man, the detectives quickly turn their guns on Danny instead. Delrain then mentions Lyle and says he also knows about Minnie. Hearing this, Danny immediately pulls out the photo and demands answers about why it was inside the deposit box. The moment Delrain sees the photo, he realizes the box is empty. Right then, Nix also arrives on the rooftop. Trapped in a corner, Delrain tells the detectives to clean things up. Then he suddenly jumps off the roof and disappears. As soon as he's gone, the 2 detectives shoot each other. When Danny looks down at the street, Delrain is nowhere to be seen. Moments later, Nix informs Danny that only 1 guard survived the chaos, but the guard claims he remembers nothing, just like Lyle. Lyle was the man Danny once blamed for his daughter's disappearance. Years ago, Lyle had taken Danny's daughter to a park to play, and she vanished without a trace. Even after all these years, she has never been found. Lyle kept insisting that he didn't even remember what he was doing there. The incident destroyed his life, and eventually his wife left him too. Later that evening, Danny reviews the CCTV footage. While he's watching, Nix calls and tells him they've finally traced the unknown number that sent the tip. He also sends Danny the address connected to it. After this, Danny goes to the address and meets Diana, a psychic who has the ability to control people's minds. At that moment, she is working with a large, muscular man inside the building. Danny begins asking Diana a few questions, but she refuses to answer and tells him to leave. It seems like she's afraid of something. At the same time, another man approaches the big guy inside. Suddenly, the biker storms into the building, trying to kill both Diana and Danny, but they manage to escape just in time. When the attacker's plan fails, he ends up getting killed himself. After this incident, Diana realizes she's now in danger too, so Danny brings her to the police station. There, Diana finally reveals the truth. She explains that Delrain is a hypnotic someone with the power to control people's minds. Diana has the same ability because both of them were once part of a secret organization called The Division, a hidden program that secretly worked for the U.S. government. The program was created to train gifted individuals who had the rare ability to read and influence minds. At first, it looked like the organization existed to help people, but later they discovered the real goal was to use these powers to control the world. Danny finds it hard to believe Diana's story. To prove it, Diana demonstrates her power by controlling Nick's mind. With just a simple command, Nick sits down, starts crying, and then calmly walks outside to buy cigarettes. Diana then explains that Delrain is the most powerful hypnotic of them all, but he no longer works for the government. He has become become a rebel. The division tried many times to stop him, and Diana was one of the agents sent after him, but Delrain still managed to escape. Eventually, Diana left the agency and started a new life, hoping to finally live in peace. Later, when she read the news about the bank robberies and saw that none of the witnesses could remember anything, she immediately realized the truth. It had to be Delrain. At that moment outside, Delrain uses his powers on Nix. Suddenly, Nix returns to the station and starts firing at Danny and Diana. He doesn't listen to a single word Danny says. With no other choice, Danny shoots Nix in the leg, but even that doesn't stop him. Nix keeps attacking and a violent fight breaks out. After a long struggle, Danny finally manages to chain him to the jail bars. Still, Nix remains under Delrain's control. He keeps trying to follow Delrain's command. Even with his hands injured, the pain doesn't stop him, and he almost manages to free himself. Just then, Diana arrives and shoots Nix in the head. Danny is furious when he sees this, but Diana tries to calm him down. She tells him that Nix would have died anyway. She only ended his suffering. Now they have no way to explain Nix's death to anyone, so Danny and Diana decide to leave the city. Soon, their faces start appearing on the news as fugitives. Later, while eating at a diner, Danny admits that he finally believes Lyle. Lyle had always said he remembered nothing, and now Danny is sure that Minnie was also taken by Delrain. Just then, a police officer in plain clothes walks in and recognizes them. Before he can pull out his gun, Diana uses her powers. She calmly tells him to call the station and report that he saw the fugitives running away. She even makes him pay their food bill. As Danny and Diana are about to leave, a message comes through on the officer's radio. It's from Delrain. The message is simple: I'm coming. When Danny and Diana step outside, they see Delrain waiting for them with 2 police officers. Danny immediately tells Diana to run while he stays behind to distract them. Danny runs toward the train tracks and tries to hide behind a passing train to avoid the police. After staying hidden for a moment, he suddenly turns around and is shocked by the strange things he starts seeing around him. Then he hears footsteps behind him. Delrain and the officers have arrived. Moments later, the strange visions disappear. Danny realizes it was all another illusion created by Delrain. Strange things he starts seeing around him. As the officers prepare to shoot Danny, a truck suddenly crashes into them and runs them over. The driver is Diana. After that, Danny and Diana escape and head toward Mexico. On the way, Diana explains that hypnotics can make people see anything they want, controlling their perception until the victim's mind completely shuts down. But she tells Danny something surprising. His mind is unusually strong. She says she can't control him with her powers, that Delrain is far more powerful and might still be able to break through his mind. When they reach the border, a guard stops them. Diana quietly uses her powers, and the guard suddenly becomes friendly and lets them pass without any trouble. From there, they go to meet Jeremiah, a man who once worked with both Diana and Delrain. Jeremiah doesn't have hypnotic powers, but his mind is extremely strong. According to Diana, only Delrain has ever been able to control him. When they knock on his door, Jeremiah sends his housekeeper to answer it while he waits inside with a gun, staying alert. As soon as Danny walks in alone, the housekeeper suddenly pulls out a gun and points it at Jeremiah. Then the truth is revealed: it's actually Diana. She used her powers to disguise herself as the housekeeper and locked the real one inside a closet. Danny asks Jeremiah if he knows anything about Delrain. Jeremiah explains that Delrain is searching for something called Project Domino, a powerful weapon created by the division. This weapon has the ability to control any human mind, no matter how strong it is. According to rumors, Delrain once stole Domino and hid it in a secret location. To keep that place hidden, he erased his own memories. The only thing he left behind were a few clues that might lead back to it if he ever remembered them. Jeremiah continues explaining that the division managed to track Delrain down not long after that, but about 6 weeks ago, something triggered inside his mind, and he disappeared again. Now he's searching for the clues that could lead him back to the hidden weapon. Jeremiah believes one of those clues might be inside the bank deposit boxes. That's when Danny reveals something important. He found a photo of his daughter inside one of those boxes. As Jeremiah begins looking closely at the photo, Diana suddenly becomes alert, and then the shocking truth comes out. Jeremiah is actually Delrain himself. He had been hiding his real identity the entire time. The moment he gets the chance, Delrain pulls out a gun and opens fire on both Danny and Diana. They quickly escape the house and run into the crowded streets, trying to disappear into the crowd. But suddenly, several people around them turn hostile. Delrain has already used his powers to control them. To create a distraction, Danny fires his gun into the air, causing panic and chaos in the crowd. As people scatter in fear, Danny and Diana manage to break free and run down another street. There, Danny shoots at a biker's helmet, knocking the rider off the motorcycle so they can escape. They grab the motorcycle and speed away. Anyone who tries to stop them gets pushed aside as they race through the streets. Suddenly, Danny starts seeing strange things again. His mind begins to spin, and the confusion grows stronger. But Diana quickly reminds him that it's only an illusion created by Delrain. Realizing this, they abandon the bike and continue running on foot, but their escape ends in a dead end. Just then, Delrain arrives with a group of police officers under his control. He tries to capture them using his powers, but Danny suddenly remembers what Diana said earlier, that his mind is unusually strong. Focusing hard, he pushes back against Delrain's influence. Something unexpected happens. The officers suddenly turn against Delrain and restrain him instead. As the police take Delrain away, Danny begins acting strangely. He never had powers before, but now he suddenly seems able to influence other people's minds. Diana is shocked. She tells him that shouldn't be possible and warns him that he might forget everything later. After that, they go to see River, one of Diana's friends, and a brilliant hacker who originally helped build the division's network. River starts digging through the system and searches for Danny's records. But strangely, there is no record of Danny's wife. When River searches deeper, Danny's heart breaks once again. They discover that his wife, Viv, was also a member of the division, and her location has been hidden extremely well. It's so deeply buried that even River says it could take hours to track her down. Later, Danny and Diana rest in another room. During the quiet moment, Danny opens up about his past. He explains that he fell in love with Viv back in the college. They eventually got married and built a family together. But after Minnie disappeared, Viv could never forgive him. Now Danny starts to wonder if Viv had been lying about her job all along. Danny admits that even if many things in his past might have been hidden or manipulated, the pain of losing his daughter was always real. Later that night, while Diana's taking a shower, Danny receives a call from an unknown number. It's Delrain. Using his hypnotic power through the call, Delrain begins forcing Danny to attack Diana. Danny struggles hard to resist the control. Then the call suddenly cuts off, but a small part of the influence remains in his mind. Without realizing it, Danny slams his hand on the table and starts looking for Diana. That's when he notices something terrifying. There's a pair of scissors in his hand. He doesn't even remember picking them up. Trying to fight the urge, Danny forces himself to stab the scissors into the wall and step away. But when Diana comes closer, he suddenly realizes the scissors are still in his hand. Slowly, almost against his will, Danny starts moving toward her with the scissors, struggling to stop himself. But Diana had already seen him through the mirror. Thinking quickly, she suddenly kisses him, breaking his focus and snapping him out of the trance. That night, Danny has a strange dream filled with memories of his family. In the dream, he sees Diana slowly turning into Viv. The confusion pushes Danny to quietly enter River's room. On the computer, he finds something shocking where Diana's name should be. The system shows Viv, and according to the records, she is still working for the division. Danny realizes that someone altered his memories. In truth, Diana is his real wife, but when he looked at her before, his mind made him see Viv instead. Then, Danny opens Minnie's profile and another shocking truth is revealed. Minnie herself is Project Domino, the very weapon Delrain has been searching for. Because Minnie's parents are both incredibly powerful hypnotics, she inherited extraordinary abilities, making her the most powerful mind control weapon of all. At that moment, Diana wakes up and finally tells Danny the whole truth. Both of them once worked for the division. When the organization discovered Minnie's incredible abilities, they decided to train her as well, to turn her into the most powerful hypnotic in the world. Diana agreed with the plan, but Danny refused. He couldn't accept the idea of the government using their young daughter like a weapon. So Danny did something drastic. He kidnapped Minnie himself and erased his own memories to keep her hidden. Hearing this, Danny slowly begins to remember his plan. He explains that he wanted to protect Minnie from everyone, even from himself. Suddenly, River's room disappears. Danny finds himself inside a secret division facility. Agents surround him and start pressuring him to focus his mind and remember Minnie's location. Then the shocking truth unfolds. Danny's entire life as a police detective was fake. Even the therapy sessions he thought were real were actually part of the division's plan to trigger his memories. Diana, Nix, the fake Viv, River, and even the therapist, all of them were division agents playing their roles. Delrain is there too, holding the photo. He explains that the message on it is the key to finding Minnie. For 4 years, they've been trying to make Danny remember where he hid her. But every time Danny starts remembering, something happens and the process fails. So they have to start over again. This time, Danny refuses to help them. He runs outside the facility and realizes that the buildings around him are fake, constructed only to make the illusion feel real. Before he can escape, division agents surround him and knock him unconscious again. Sometime later, Danny wakes up in a laboratory. Diana stands beside him and softly says that even if everything around them was fake, her love for him and for their daughter has always been real. But instead of believing her, Danny lashes out and insults Diana. Eventually, Diana and the other agents lose patience. They strap Danny into a machine and wipe his memories again, making sure that whenever he is asked about Minnie, he will simply say, "I don't know." When Danny opens his eyes, he finds himself sitting in his therapist's office. His life has been reset once again. The same conversations, the same routine, everything repeating exactly as before. In reality, the division has him connected to a machine while the agents restart the entire scenario and return to playing their roles. As Danny walks into the fake elevator, he checks his phone and notices something strange: photos showing Diana's real face. This reveals something important. Danny's mind has grown so powerful that the division agents can no longer completely erase the memories hidden deep inside his brain without his consent. For now, though, Danny pretends to go along with their plan. Soon, Nix arrives to pick him up, and the two head toward the bank, another carefully constructed fake environment. When Danny looks at the CCTV footage, he acts as if he forgot the case files into his notebook, just like before. Then, as planned, he steps outside to enter the bank. But while the agents wait for him to pass through the door, something unexpected happens. Danny suddenly disappears. As the agents begin searching for him, Danny steals a van and drives it at full speed, smashing through everything in his path. Diana tries to stop him using her powers, but Danny's mind has become too strong. He keeps pushing forward without slowing down. At the same time, Nix finds Danny's notebook. Curious, he gently rubs a pencil across the page, trying to reveal the hidden writing beneath it. Nix finally discovers the meaning behind the puzzle. Find Lev Del Rain. When he traces the words carefully, they point to a location, Deer Valley Lane. He realizes this might be where Minnie is hidden. A few hours later, Danny arrives at Deer Valley. At the entrance, Carl and Thelma greet him with their weapons ready. Only after they are certain that Danny has remembered everything do they allow him inside. There, Danny sees something he has waited years for Minnie. Now grown up, playing with Domino. Father and daughter finally embrace after all this time. Then, Minnie says something surprising. Mom is nearby too. At that moment, division agents begin arriving with helicopters. They quickly learn that Thelma and Carl are the people running Deer Valley, and that they are actually Danny's step-parents. When the agents approach, Carl and Thelma fire warning shots and begin speaking to Diana, as if they already know her, but Diana doesn't remember them at all. When they refuse to cooperate, Delrain loses patience and orders his men to open fire. Diana, desperate to protect her daughter, runs toward Carl and Thelma, begging them to tell her something about Minnie before it's too late. Just then, Danny steps outside and tells Diana something important. He says the woman he loved would never want their daughter to live this kind of life. In reality, he's trying to signal to her that her mind is still under the division's control. Then, Minnie suddenly walks out and hugs her mother. She says she's proud that her mom finally came home. Diana is completely confused. That's when Minnie reveals the truth. This was all part of a plan to escape the division. Realizing the situation, Delrain loses control. He understands that the environment around him isn't real anymore, and in anger, he starts shooting at the house. But it makes no difference. Using her powerful abilities, Minnie commands Knox to shoot the remaining agents. The ones who survive are then controlled by Danny, who forces them to turn their weapons on each other. Suddenly, the illusion collapses. Delrain realizes he's standing in the middle of a fake set on a remote hillside. At that moment, Carl and Thelma appear alive again and immediately begin shooting the remaining agents. Meanwhile, Minnie places her forehead against Diana's, using her powers to restore her lost memories. Inside those memories, Diana sees herself tied to a chair, while a man wearing a red mask erases her mind. She keeps screaming for him to stop, but no one listens. Then Diana opens her eyes in the present, shocked as all her memories come rushing back. When Delrain tries to shoot them again, Minnie uses her incredible abilities to take control of him and finishes him for good. After everything settles, Danny finally explains the truth. From the moment Minnie was born, they knew she possessed extraordinary power. The division quickly began training her, claiming she could become dangerous but also extremely valuable to the government, especially for war. But Danny and Diana refused to let their daughter grow up as a weapon. They also knew that the division would never allow someone so powerful to simply walk away. So they created a plan. They disappeared and hid Minnie with her grandparents Carl and Thelma so she could secretly train and strengthen her abilities until she was powerful enough to fight the division. To make the plan work, Danny and Diana erased their own memories. Back then, Danny also left a hidden clue with the photo. Then he put on the red mask, altered Diana's memories, and made her believe she was still working for the division. The goal was simple. One day, she would unknowingly lead all of them back there so they could finally destroy the organization. In the end, the entire family embraces each other, celebrating the moment they are finally free from the division's control. In the end, Delrain is defeated, and the division loses its control over them. Danny, Diana, and Minnie are finally reunited as a family.